Right now, somewhere, someone is opening a bottle of wine after a long day, and they'll tell you it's a modern habit. It isn't. The taste you have for that first sip, the way your body actually likes it, was built millions of years before wine, before beer, before humans even existed in their current form. You'd think that craving is just a modern indulgence, but the real answer is far older and far stranger than people just like to relax. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. Let's start with the gene. In 2004, a researcher named Matthew Carrigan studied something called ADH4, a gene responsible for producing an enzyme that breaks down alcohol in your gut and liver. He traced its history across primate evolution and found something remarkable. Around 10 million years ago, a single mutation appeared in the ancestor shared by humans, chimpanzees, and gorillas. That mutation made the ADH4 enzyme roughly 40 times more efficient at metabolizing alcohol. 40 times, not a small tweak, a massive biological upgrade, appearing in exactly the ancestor whose descendants started spending more time on the forest floor, where fruit that had already fallen and started fermenting was suddenly part of the daily menu. This is where a biologist named Robert Dudley enters the story. He proposed something called the drunken monkey hypothesis. The idea is straightforward once you hear it. Fermenting fruit produces ethanol as a natural byproduct, and ethanol has a very specific, very useful property in the wild. It smells strong and it travels far. For an animal trying to find ripe, calorie-dense fruit scattered across a dense forest, that smell was a beacon. Alcohol wasn't the reward your ancestors were chasing. It was the trail marker pointing toward the reward, ripe, sugar-rich fruit, which meant fast, usable energy in an environment where calories were never guaranteed. The animals whose bodies could tolerate a little ethanol follow that smell, eat the fermenting fruit, and process the alcohol efficiently without getting sick or impaired, had a real advantage. More food found, more energy secured, better odds of survival. The ones who couldn't stomach it literally walked past free calories every single day. So, the appreciation you have for that smell and that taste isn't a flaw evolution forgot to fix. It's a leftover foraging instinct, still firing, long after the forest floor stopped being the food source and the liquor store took its place. This explains something people notice constantly, but rarely connect to biology. Small amounts of alcohol often feel pleasant and mildly energizing before they feel sedating. That matches an ancestor rewarded for finding food, not an ancestor rewarded for numbing out. It also explains why the smell of certain fermented foods, bread, beer, ripe fruit, wine, hits people as comforting rather than repulsive. Your nose evolved in a world where that smell reliably meant food is here. Here's where the story gets even more useful, because it doesn't stop at alcohol. The same principle explains fermented foods more broadly. Long before refrigeration, humans across nearly every culture independently discovered that fermentation did something remarkable. It preserved food that would otherwise spoil, and in many cases made it safer and more nutritious than the raw version. Fermented dairy survived longer than fresh milk in hot climates. Fermented vegetables lasted through winters when fresh produce disappeared entirely. Fermented grains became more digestible, and in some cases, the fermentation process itself neutralized harmful bacteria that would have made the unfermented version dangerous to eat. This means your ancestors weren't just tolerating fermentation. Populations that developed a taste for it and the gut bacteria to handle it well were quietly gaining a survival edge every single winter, every single food shortage, every single time raw food would have made someone sick and the fermented version didn't. That's why almost no culture on Earth skipped fermentation entirely. Not because everyone independently decided it tasted good first, because the groups who tolerated and used it survived harder seasons better than the groups who didn't. And that advantage compounded across generations. So the next time you reach for a fermented food, a beer, a piece of sourdough, a jar of kimchi, notice that the pull you feel isn't random. It's a 10 million year old foraging signal and a food preservation strategy, both wired into the same craving, both still running exactly as designed. The danger, of course, is that the modern world changed the dosage completely. Your ancestors were chasing a faint alcohol smell, drifting off scattered, naturally fermented fruit in the wild. You live in a world with bottles that concentrate that same signal by a factor of hundreds. The instinct is ancient, the environment triggering it is not, and that mismatch is worth knowing every time that craving shows up stronger than the situation actually calls for. Right now, somewhere, someone is opening a bottle of wine after a long day, and their body has been rehearsing that exact craving for 10 million years.